tell me about your toolbox, because this toolbox, I remember seeing this toolbox as a kid, and it looked ancient and from the dark ages when I was a kid. So it's got to have a story.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly when I picked it up, but I think it was at college. And there were some old tools that I inherited from the landlord because they didn't need them. So I've just kept it ever since.
Did you buy it new or
No, it was
secondhand?
It was rusty when I got it.
I thought so.
So it could be 100 years old. But I also picked up this brace and bit at the same time. And you can buy this same apparatus from Amazon as well. I looked up to see how much they cost, and it ranged from $30 to $50 in that price range. So it's, in addition to being an antique, it's could be a collector's item.
Fun. So what?
But I used it for,
yeah, what do you use it for?
just like before I got an electric drill, I could punch holes in boards, and I think I used it in a difficult place to get at with an electric drill. I can't remember exactly what the use was, but at any rate, this was one of the tools, and I used this one because it was small enough to carry around the basic tools that I needed, but not so big that it was cumbersome and tools would get lost.
So I remember thinking how cool it was to have the little trays on top for the little screws and stuff. So when that opens, it opens the whole thing, and when you close it, that little drawer folds down in.
Right. Yeah.
That's so cool.
This lock has been secure enough that I haven't bothered with the auxiliary features to keep it closed, unless I'm going somewhere, but it still works. I've had to, I don't remember dropping it, but I remember straightening something out so that the door would fit better.
Huh.
And then once I got a job, part-time job at college for one of the local fabric stores of working on sewing machines, then I ordered, and they specialized in FAF machines. Then I ordered some spare parts that I would commonly need and still have a Walgreens prescription little bottle for extra screws.
Oh, nice.
And I'd carry a few pencils and pens and drill bits and nail sets, and this is coming apart now, but the gauge for the threads on screws and metric and standard.
Oh.
So, and of course, socket. I'd throw in a socket wrench if I needed one.
Fun. So, are there any other tools that you want to show us in there that have a story?
Well, these tin snips I think I picked up at the same time and have used those extensively. I finally bought a new pair that I like better, but hung on to these. And then my channel locks, my famous channel locks. A little bit rusty, but they still work. I've since embellished my collection of channel locks and pliers. And I had 2 or 3 chisels that I used when I was putting a lock in a door jamb or something like that, and putting it was a good tool.
Awesome.
And this vice grip I used a lot. You can see that it probably got acquainted with some electrical wire or something that melted part of the jaw.
Oh.
But other than that, it still works good. And this pipe wrench resolved many problems. I used it in combination with a newer pipe wrench, and they both worked equally well. Anyhow, at any rate, here's one of my nail sets. Here's another drill bit that goes with this set here.
Oh, that thing's crazy. That's for drilling a big hole.
Right, it's adjustable. I've got a couple more fittings that you can adjust it from about a 1-inch hole up to about 3 inches.
Wow.
And this pair of pliers may have been from when I was growing up in Denver. I'm not sure. And then I bought a bunch of small wrenches, which have come in really handy. They're small stuff. This one I probably used on something that I wasn't supposed to. Broke.
Bummer.
And then I'd always keep a little supply of 19 gauge wire. Not quite as good as baling wire, but it worked when I needed it. And then for my plumbing jobs, I'd always keep Teflon tape. And there's several more tools, but that gives you an idea of what we've got. This little paint scraper got quite a bit of paint off of windows. When my brother and I were kids, we got to be experts at replacing windows, and this was a final touch. We were playing baseball in the alleys and in our alley, and we ended up replacing windows now and again if somebody hit a home run through a garage window or something.
That's the story I remember. Grandpa showing you how to replace the panes of glass.
Yeah. And then this was really handy. Wire cutter and gauge for wiring, doing house wiring. So those were used quite a bit when we were finishing our basement. Any other questions?
Well, I was just gonna see if you have a story about something that something you learned from your dad. Grandpa was a fix-it guy.
Yeah, my dad was. And every now and again, probably the funniest incident was I was riding a bicycle that he had put together from spare parts, and was riding on the sidewalk, and the frame broke completely in two, so there were two halves to so we had two unicycles that were not very user-friendly. So Dad was in the garage, and we took it to him, and he had a welder and could weld it back together again. And he did a couple of repairs on our flyer wagon.
Some welding stuff.
That we about wore out. So in his garage, he had a pretty elaborate tool board and series of baby food jars screwed to the bottom of a board to sort his screws so that they were so it was more user friendly. And he would trace around the outside of each tool so that I and my brothers would know where the tool went back. Despite this, I think we still lost a fair amount of tools growing up. And but my dad was patient. I built a workbench in the house we live in now, and inherited the old vise that Dad used for everything, had on his workbench in Denver. So there's a lot of history that goes with this toolbox and some of the tools that I've used over the years. One of the most fun things that we built was some stilts. We started out with stilts that were about 1 foot high, using furring strips and pieces of 2x4s. And then gradually the novelty of that wore out, and I think our highest stilts had the steps at about 7 feet off the ground. And so we would walk around the block on our stilts.
Great Scott.
And it was interesting on getting down. We'd try and find a lawn that had a slope down the side so that we wouldn't fall as far when we were getting off. And to get on them, we had to climb up on the garage roof and then hang our feet over the edge of the roof, and then we could get started. I think my brother Neil had the experience of falling into some clotheslines, a series of about 5 clotheslines between 2 posts, and he fell over the clotheslines, didn't break any of them that I can remember. So
oh, funny.
We had a lawnmower sharpening business that my dad rigged up a lawnmower sharpening bench. You could take off one of the wheels. They had a little ratchet that we called the dog, that you kept the wheel that would turn backwards and make a buzzing sound, but then you try and move it the other direction and it would lock. And so that's how the blade turned as you pushed them over, and then it would kind of, you'd hear the buzzing noise as you back the mower up and you're actually cutting grass. Anyhow, he would take off one wheel and put it in this jig, and then the jig had a rubber belt that would turn, and he had a mixture of metal filings, I guess, or grit, they called it, that he would turn the blades backwards against the cutting bar and feed this grit in which would act like a file to sharpen the blades and the cutting bar. And that kept me busy for a couple of summers until the city shut us down because we didn't have enough business to open a shop in the business district. And so somebody complained, but another thing my dad did was build a hedge cutting machine out of a saw, and it was a circular saw and a ladder, and I can't remember what else that he had in that invention, but
the weed eater.
Oh, okay.
Yes, the circular saw blade on the weed eater. I I'm gonna get Jacob to tell me about that one too.
So, he was trying to trim pyracantha and got tired of getting his fingers stuck.
The thorns.
So lots of good memories.
Fabulous. Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.